Dr. Alan Blum, it's good to see you again. I always enjoy visiting with you. We've done stories with you in the past about smoking, and everyone that I mention your name to says, oh, you wouldn't believe all the work he's done on making this a smoke-free campus. You're highly thought of on this campus, and I don't know if you know that, but I want to tell, every time I mention your name, people speak highly of you, and I want you to know that. I'm glad you're back with us.
Well, I appreciate it, Mike. Thanks.
Digital media addiction. Us old people love to go, these kids today, they're on their phones too much and they're watching the screens too much. And you're studying now and finding that all of us are being not just distracted from other things, but actually, you think, doing damage to our brains. Is that right?
The problem with digital media addiction is, well, what is digital media addiction? The dependence that most of us now have on our cell phones, our laptops, and on social media. Yeah. What does that have to do with the Center for the Study of Tobacco and Society? It hit me about 20 years ago when the British Medical Journal reported that teenagers were stopping smoking. And the reason they attributed it to was that they were spending their disposable income on cell phones instead of cigarettes. I said, uh-oh.
This isn't good.
I wonder whether we're going to be trading one addiction for another. And sure enough, we have children now in grade school, middle school, high school using 8 to 10 hours a day of smartphones. It's literally, and they're never without it. We know about the texting and driving and the texting and walking across the street and getting killed, but we don't realize that the day-to-day lack of attentiveness to what they're doing other than on the cell phones is becoming a serious concern.
As a storyteller, as a journalist, as a talker, I am concerned that young people aren't learning to talk to each other because they're next to each other, texting each other. That's just one issue. You think there are many more serious issues than just that. In fact, permanent problems.
We're looking at mental health, emotional health, and physical health consequences. My student Tom Grichala and I have been exploring the world of digital media addiction, and we're not at all happy with what we're finding. About 3 years ago, when I spoke at the School of Library and Information Studies, on my way to give the talk, I could have walked there stark naked and nobody would have said anything because everybody was on their smartphones. And so I coined the phrase, I suggested a new motto for the School of Libraries and Information Studies, looking up. And I then began looking for other universities that had even been aware of the problem. I only found Liberty University in Virginia that has created a Wi-Fi free digital wellness center where students can come and just sit, relax, and talk, actually face to face.
Actually exchange words with each other.
It's not being addressed, and this is a big concern because we are seeing medical effects. The easiest things, of course, are text neck. That spinal curvature actually will last the more you do it. I love it when people say, oh, no, I never do that. I always lie like this. No. This is something where if you walk down the street staring at a 1-inch screen, it's going to have permanent effects. And that leads also into what they call computer vision syndrome, where you're staring at a screen, much less the little 1-inch screens on your smartphone, all day long, and we're getting eye strain, headaches, neck strain.
With all of the addiction work you did on tobacco, it was believable to all of us. Us laymen went, yeah, smoking's terrible. We've got to get people to stop smoking. They're dying of cancer. And you've done a segment with us about this. What's the long-term diagnosis if we don't get young people, all of us, off of these digital platforms more down the road? What's the ultimate damage done?
The scary thing for me is even when we weren't doing much about fighting smoking, everyone referred to them as cancer sticks or coffin nails. They were aware this isn't any good, and grandma told us, please don't smoke. That's not happening at all with smartphones. There's absolutely a pushback to the point where you got to be crazy. This is so pleasurable. And you know, when people go scroll through all their texts and all their emails, they actually think that they're doing good work because then they can eliminate things that they're not interested in. They think that's an accomplishment. That's what's called a kind of a dopamine effect on the brain. It creates the illusion that we're doing the right thing. This is a good use of our time. It's a terrible use of our time because what smartphones are is attention. It's all about some other party stealing our attention. Well, we think we want that attention, but really there's nothing left if all our attention is on those screens.
We better end with the hardest question of all, and I wonder if you're far enough down the road on this research to have an answer. Knowing you, I'll bet you do. How are you going to get people off of them? What are you going to do about this? We're all putting this on you, Dr. Blum. What are we going to do about this down the road?
the solutions are few and far between right now. Everything that Apple and Microsoft and all of the big tech companies are doing is keeping us more and more glued to these devices and to the software. What we've got to do is pick up books again. We've got to get outside and walk. We've got to look at each other when we speak. We've got to not just play games at the dinner table by playing the rule of threes. That's when, if there are at least 3 people there, then the rest of you can look down at your cell phones. We've simply got to reconnect to one another. I know that sounds hokey, but we're just not the same country if we don't.
But parents, mothers, fathers, leaders in the home have to lay down the law and say, no phones now. We're eating dinner together. We're going to talk to each other. It takes leadership to begin to make that happen.
You know, it's more fun, believe it or not, to get back to family, to get back to sports, to get back to doing things, not just being a passive observer. And that's what we all are when we're sitting on these devices.
Never anything boring about talking to you, Dr. Blum. Thank you for your time today. We'll want to do more on this down the road. Thank you.